It's crack treated. It's crack treated seriously. AO3 tag.
Mulch.
Which is
We have brain poisoning.
It's difficult sometimes. It's difficult being around Jill.
We got this. We got this. We got this. We got this.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ankh-Morpork Historians Guild. Today we will be reading and reviewing something a little unusual for us, the book The Long Earth by Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter, released in 2012. My name is Purtis, and I use they-them pronouns.
My name is Mulch. I also use they-them pronouns.
And my name is Chio, and I use she, her pronouns.
Normie.
Yeah.
It's a little unusual for us because it is not part of the Discworld universe. The Long Earth is a severely underrated pentology. What are those called? Set of 5 books.
There's 5 of them? I thought there were 3.
There's so many. I think there is 5. Now you've made me scared that there's not, but I feel like
I thought it was.
I remember there being like a shocking number.
There's 5. Long Earth, Long War, Long Mars, Long Utopia, and Long Cosmos.
Oh, wow. And we're going to read them all because I really liked this book.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean...
Yes, we will.
And not like
after
together.
We read all 5 of them, I'll read Gideon, an even exchange.
That is not an even exchange. That is bullshit.
I've learned there's a Homestuck reference in this book.
You learned that there's a Harry Potter reference in this book.
No, I learned both.
Unlearn those. Unlearn those things. Don't think about those things. Don't think about those things.
So,
Anyway, I feel like all 5 books would fall outside of the scope. Is like only the first. Most of them were published after Terry Pratchett's death.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think even the second book was published after his death.
I thought the second and third one were around when we were kids, and he was.
when we were teenagers.
Like children.
Only one of the books released after his death. The Long Cosmos released after his death. So that's it.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, because I know at least the Long Mars and Long War were around when
he died in 2015, and the Long Utopia released 23rd of June 2015. So it released like 1 month after he died, I guess.
So, but he
oh, you're right.
Write it.
Okay, well,
so I mean, seems in the wheelhouse to me. I mean, it would have been anyways, because he would have still helped to write it, but, seems like we're going to read them all.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this fucking book.
Let's actually talk about
Let's lay the groundwork. The Long Earth has one of the most invigorating basic premises for me personally of any fucking book, so let's lay the groundwork. The Long Earth asks the very important sci-fi question: what if somebody released the diagrams for a device that could allow you to step east and west into parallel worlds uninhabited by human beings? Would that be fucked up or what? And then it just kind of deals with that question for most of this book, both through the story of what I will generously call our main characters, Joshua Valentino, a gentleman who is a natural stepper, meaning he doesn't get sick and he doesn't need the device, and he was born alone in a world, and Lobsang, a sentient AI turned on at the exact same moment as a motorcycle repairman dies, and gets reincarnated into him, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
So
I can definitely see why why this didn't click for me as a kid, because it isn't structured conventionally the way I was used to. It's more like a loose framework that is used to explore a bunch of different branching out stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that brings us into the other half of the book, which is what most of the book genuinely is, which is random diaries, check-ins, radio broadcasts, and little peculiarities of people both
Or even
off,
just like,
or yeah, just meetings, just like a random meeting of people both in and outside of base Earth, which in the book is called Datum Earth.
Yeah. I did like there are a lot of short stories in this, and it's all around the same themes, but they're definitely like they're short stories. They're self-contained short stories. It's really interesting, and it is like like I think it was a little hard for me to read at first because it switches back and forth between different stories so quickly at first. But I really like short stories. So I do really, really like it. And like I love these little glimpses into these lives that it gave us.
I also feel that what I love about this book is it is an obsession with an American ideal of like exploration and freedom, but it doesn't
sort
shy.
of riff on.
Oh, but
All right, continue.
But it doesn't shy away from how negative so many of those things are, and how negative like the actual journey into the hashtag Wild West was in Datum Earth. Like it initially feels like it will, because it does pose the question like, oh, there are no people here. Like there are no native people here. So that's like
that was the thing that made it super uncomfortable at first.
But I think that like, though it seems like it's going to phrase it like it's a whole good thing because there's no native people, it doesn't. It states like, oh, there's no native people, and it's still fucked up to do all this. Like, it's still fucked up to walk into a forest and cut down this huge tree for profit. And it's still fucked up to, like, do shit like leave your fucking family behind. Which is also a thing that was quite frequent during that era of the hashtag Wild West. Listener, understand that I'm going to keep saying Wild West because it's important. It's an important concept. This also recognize that it's not a real fucking thing, and that it wasn't, that fucking wild. There were just people living there. But there's not like
who lived in a way that whose civilizations did not resemble anything that the European settlers knew how to recognize.
So, like, or they did, and they just didn't give a shit about it, which also happened.
Yeah,
like let's not.
There's a lot of stuff like settlers fucking starving among rich farmland because they don't know what fucking farmland looks like.
Yeah. And
like eating each other, eating their shoes and shit while like in one of the most ecologically rich areas.
Yeah. It's always so banger. So yeah, listener, understand we're gonna keep using that phrase because I think it's important to. And also this book,
this is like a Western. It is sort of like
it's about this.
It is about, say, an exploration of manifest destiny, which is why I got super scared.
Reasonable. Very reasonable. Let me be clear. I think that there's a lot to be scared about when you're reading this book. Like, ooh, is this going to get nasty? Like, is this going to be bad? Am I going to get so uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And I think there are times where it doesn't pull it off perfectly. Like, let me be clear.
Yeah.
There are some moments where I get worried.
Yeah. There were sections on the... so, the one thing that I have trouble with this book is that I need the future books to fix the troll situation they've got going on right now.
I mean, I guess okay, let's talk about trolls. So let's state what trolls and elves, and let's just call them all fae for right now. The book doesn't give them like a full term right now. Let's just call them all fae. Every single one of them, trolls, elves, whatever, are all fae.
Yeah.
God, the trolls are interesting because they are both, I guess, like, in a way, the most troubling aspect to me, but also kind of my favorite part.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel similarly that I really like what we've seen of them a lot, and then the way the human characters think of them is really uncomfortable, and in
For
such an
me, that's
obviously
not.
Yeah.
For me, like, the human characters, how the human characters approach them isn't the problem. It's just that it's the inherent matter of the issue of displacement
Mhm,
and grappling with manifest destiny. It's just like a conceptual thorn,
mhm.
which is that
Yeah.
they are the sort of analog for the native people in a
V
way.
Very clearly, and, like, the way the human characters think about them parallels that very like like, they're there's even one time when Joshua, like, is literally saying or, like, I don't remember if he's saying this or thinking this, where he's,
Oh,
like,
shit.
saying that the reason they aren't people is because they don't, like, stay and build things, and for some reason that they have oral traditions, um, which was
I'm not sure we're supposed to take that at face value though.
No, no,
I
no,
don't think
no,
we
no,
are.
no.
No,
I don't
that's
think that's what
to be
Mulch
clear.
is saying.
No,
Yeah.
no, to be clear, like, that was the most uncomfortable part for me, and I do not think we are supposed to take that at face value, and I do think they have left it at a point where they need to expand on it or there's a problem here. I think that they need to explore it more and get to what they're actually trying to do with it, because I do think that they're making direct parallels on purpose, but by the end of this book, like, the main characters are still, like, not it hasn't been addressed properly, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, it is a pentology very, very much.
Mhm.
The question of like how humanity as a whole interacts with the trolls is only just being introduced here.
Yeah.
Um,
By the way, Curtis, have you read any of the other entries in the pentology?
so I read a bit of The Long War, but The Long Earth was one of the last books I read before running away.
Oh.
And I
Oh yeah, I
didn't do
remember.
a lot of reading after that. I
Yep.
Oh
was
yeah.
a little busy.
Understandable. Understandable.
So yeah, The Long Earth came out like the year I ran away or some shit
Mhm.
like that, or like just after it, something like that.
Mhm.
And so all of the other books were releasing during the Troubles.
Yes. Yes.
It was a
Uh,
very intense time for all of our lives, I think, for largely unrelated reasons. Kind of fascinating.
Yeah, being a teen sucks. I mean, it
being a
was the
teenager does
best. It was the best thing in the world, and I was so free. And it was the worst thing in the world, and I couldn't do anything.
Yeah. Um,
I feel
some
like people frequent. I know this is unrelated, but I just can't stop myself. I'm sorry. Just it always strikes me as being so strange when people talk about teenagers as not having problems. Is for me that was so not my experience. Like I felt like I saw myself and a lot of other people struggle with the same issues as that adults do. It's just that we were completely disempowered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the way people
Basically.
talk about teens and children are like fundamentally evil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also oftentimes controlled by people who didn't have problems as teenagers and assume that's just universal.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that what most commonly happens is that people did, but they downplay them as they move away from them.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But regardless,
I physically can't do that just because it was such a
Wait, we have to talk about
fucked
the
up
book.
time period
Yeah.
in my life. But anyway, yeah, sorry, that was way off route.
I am very excited to read the rest of these books. I and Michi, we need bribing material to get Purtis to read the rest of the Gideon of the Ninth book. So
I feel like
I'm gonna be so real
yeah.
with you. I hate being the hater, and I don't. If I don't like Gideon, I'm not going to read the other
if you
two.
don't like it, the first book, we're not going to make you read the rest.
Yeah.
And we're not going to make you record an episode about it.
But you'd like the third one so much. Yeah, okay. I agree, but like
I'm
but
not gonna lie.
Those are long ass fucking books, and
Yeah.
if you don't like the first one, I'm not going to make you read two others just on the off chance that you like the third.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
I mean, I would request that you give it a chance if you're merely lukewarm on it.
If I'm merely lukewarm on it, I might give it a chance.
Cool.
Unless
Thank you.
Okay. Unless there are better books
because
to read.
it is a series where each book is radically different from the last, stylistically and narratively.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, if you hate it, I'm not going to push you.
Let's talk about this book.
I want to talk about Joshua and Lobsang because I feel insane about them.
Let's talk about these two, and then we'll talk about the short stories. And then
I remember in high school, you told me that one of the only characters you related to was Lobsang.
I feel so much about Lobsang.
I love Lobsang. I love I love him as a character. I also love just like I don't know how to say this, but like the fact that the like type of character he is would be such a different thing in another book. Like he would be a villain in another book, but because it is this book and it's Joshua's eyes we're seeing through, like it's so good. It's so good. And
I don't know. I feel like I agree that like Lobsang is a unique character, but I've definitely seen sympathetic, all-powerful AI characters in sci-fi before.
But he's not fucking sympathetic.
Yeah, that's the thing is he's so arrogant.
Let me rephrase that. Like I've seen arrogant, manipulative, but still essentially.
But like that's
anyway.
So yeah, that's the thing is I'm also thinking about those characters even when they're sympathetic because the way that they are taught to be sympathetic is different. Like or in fact even the fact that they have to be taught to be sympathetic through crossing boundaries. And Lobsang does cross boundaries, but it is like confusing and can be frustrating the fact that he gets some things, like he gets some boundaries really, really well naturally, and then he really doesn't understand others and he does fuck up in like ways that feel like he should know better. But
I want to show you Blake 7.
Let Mulch finish.
Yeah, sorry.
But like those types of characters are presented as like they're presented in a certain way and part of like making them better or making them people or whatever of those narratives is normally that they cross a boundary and they get in conflict with the main like they conflict with the main character. And I don't know it's technically that does happen in this book, but it's not in the same way. And Lobsang inherently gives Joshua choices or inherently has a sense of Joshua's bodily autonomy, and the fact the fact that he gave Joshua a real option to come or not because he was gonna do the thing anyway, or the fact that he got permission first to give Joshua the information he had on his past. Like those are not things that you would normally see with that type of character, especially with how fucking audacious Lobsang is. I love him so much.
I swear to God, I have seen that before in sci-fi.
The thing that I really like about Lobsang as a character, and what I think makes him really interesting, is the same thing that makes all the dynamics around Joshua and his interaction with other beings really interesting, which is that this book's one of its central focuses is how do we deal with sentience or creatures or people that are vastly different from us. Joshua Valentino is this ultimate lonely gentleman who also deeply has a need for other people. Not in the way that we all do, but in his own way. And he is faced repeatedly with situations in which he is interacting with something that is drastically different from him, and he's not necessarily right about what he feels or his responses. So Lobsang is constantly testing and fucking and pushing with him, and neither the narrative nor Joshua nor Lobsang come to a decision that the human way is necessarily the best way. Sometimes Lobsang's arrogance is right, or at least Lobsang will make a conscious choice to keep to his arrogance. This is kind of what has always made Lobsang such a fantabulous character to me, because I feel like in a lot of stories, there is a continual push to be human. When we look at characters like Star Trek's Data, there is always, a Pinocchio story. It sucks to be wood and you want to be human. You want to be like this. You want to be part of the dominant society. You want to be the same thing as everybody else. But this
Pinocchios
story...
and Frankensteins.
Exactly. In this story, consistently pushes against that, and it pushes against it with Lobsang too. And I think it's really interesting with Lobsang because he's a dick. While it's something interesting when you talk about the long jumpers and the trolls and the reason that they should be able to keep doing what they're doing outside of what Joshua or others would expect, or even those on Datum, like the phobics, they're all relatively sympathetic. They have these kind of sweet and sad ideas of why they should do it. The trolls are refugees, right? They are being pushed from both sides. And humanity is not kind to them because it does not understand them. And also we'll talk about first person singular, but that's a whole nother fucking deal. First person singular, it's a whole 5 books worth of deal. That's why I really like Lobsang, and that's what I think actually makes him unique more than any of his other traits. It's how the story deals with not humanity and humanity,
and letting someone be so inherently a person without making them the same. It's without making them assimilate to the story. Like Lobsang needs to work on personal communication and personal relationships, but Lobsang does not need to be more human to be a person in this story.
I wonder why a bunch of autistic people would connect to him so well.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And that is a big part of it. We should state there are a lot of AI stories and there are a lot of alien stories which take some of these aspects. But Lobsang isn't that. He definitely is a Tibetan guy, and he does guy stuff. He goes a little crazy and he does weird shit all the fucking time. And he's clearly doing a lot of things because they get him off a little bit. He just is he's just toying with humanity. And and when they are alone, that humanity is just Joshua. The scene where he starts being a little cartoon character to make himself weird to the woman, the long jumper, whose name I've forgotten right now because I'm a misogynist.
God, I love that we are seeing Lobsang through Joshua's eyes, because Joshua is such a... One, because Joshua likes him. Like, Joshua's constantly frustrated, but Joshua likes him as a person. And because, like, Joshua reserves judgment to such a great extent. Like, Joshua's reactions are not always right. But the thing is that Joshua does reserve judgment for for long periods of time. And even if his, like, internal reactions aren't like he does the right thing. Like, God, Joshua drives me insane as well. Like the scene with the birth.
Oh my God, everything about the scene with the birth.
Oh, like, that was, if you're talking about the scene of troll birth, that was the one scene I remembered that stuck with me from when I was, like, reading it at age 14.
Reasonable. Yeah. That's a good killer fucking scene.
It's so good.
What? Yeah, I mean, kind of. It is in his interactions with Joshua too, because Joshua like has doubts that he is genuinely human or that he's genuinely altruistic, but Joshua never does this thing. Like, he never doubts that he's
a person.
Like, yeah, he never doubts that he's a sentience, that he's like an entity, which is very interesting. There are a lot of ways that this story happens where Joshua's suspicion and skepticism of everything would result in him thinking like, you're not really an entity, you're just like some kind of trick that's happening, some kind of algorithmic generation without actual thought. He doesn't do that. Like, he does like a little bit when he first meets him, which is a reasonable thing to do, but he basically abandons it as soon as he like sees him get embarrassed about the fireplace.
Yeah.
And it is this interaction between them that makes Slob sing. Like, Joshua matters so much in this story because he is so angry and so lonely and so wanting to be alone. And he has like all of these like weird hang-ups from his childhood. And he also fundamentally believes that you have to do good and the world should be good.
Joshua was actually one of the other reasons that I was initially uncomfortable, because he feels very much like a variation on the archetypal sort of Western hero. The stoic, he's frequently compared to Daniel Brune, to Robinson Crusoe. He's sort of stoic, kind of angry, strong sense of justice, loner type.
Yeah.
Sort of the rugged Western individualist.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is a very interesting choice for the book.
I think it's double interesting because it kind of presents him like that originally. But like, as you see him act, you see how much he is focused on community. And while he is like moment to moment appearing to exist alone, he actually relies on other people an immense amount. And he is constantly thinking about repaying that an immense amount all the time. So it's definitely true. He's originally presented as this Daniel Boone character, but over and over and over again, Joshua himself will talk about how you have to work for other people out in the long earth, and you have to leave supplies behind, and you have to leave markers behind, and you have to stop, not only because he thinks it's the right thing to do, but because he himself uses these things all the time, and he talks about it, which I think is phenomenal.
In a way, he feels like a humanization, that archetypal character, or if this character was real, and if he was an actual, like, actually what he is presented to be, what would he need to be like?
Yeah.
Because a lot of those real life Western pioneers were like bastards and not terribly competent.
This is a side note, but I'll never stop thinking about the fact that about that little throwaway line that was like he wasn't going to tell her that they dressed up for one of their old movies together. And I think about that every day.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You brought up him being compared to Daniel Boone and whatnot. And I will say one of the things that makes Lobsang so wonderful in this book is that he is obsessed with stories. One of his little like human quirks is his obsession with our legends, our stories, the myth of traveling the long earth. And like the myth of America itself is fascinating to him. Like to some extent he's partially doing this journey in some regards because he loves the myth. And he is, like, Lobsang is obsessively designing parts of this journey to replicate this myth. And we, like, get that a little when he starts talking about how he's, like, Daniel Boone and all this stuff. And then we get it more when they have their boxing match. And, like, just like over and over, he recreates characters and situations and realities from our stories because they're interesting, because he likes a joke.
One story I kept on, or one book that I kept on coming back to and kept on sort of pairing the Long Earth to in my head was Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. Is in a way, I think it's like kind of working off of similar thematic ground, but from a very different angle. I think the fundamental issue at the core of Solaris is what does humanity, with its desperate desire, its desperate need to know more, going to do when it slams up against something that the human intelligence, a life form that the human brain genuinely cannot comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Different, so extreme that none of our tools are capable of really understanding it.
I definitely agree. I think it works on like a lot of these questions that we have seen in sci-fi over and over and over again, and possibly the central question of being alive. How do you deal with someone who's very, very different from you that you just can't understand, right?
Yeah, it's a very common, like, I think in a way it's like a common sci-fi theme. Very few sci-fi stories I've seen are willing to grapple with real difference, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's
a lot of them are about bridging the illusion of difference.
Yeah.
Or
shout out to Ursula K. Le Guin, who talks about this a lot also.
And I think a lot of it is that same thing of a lot of sci-fi stories make the character stories of non-human creatures becoming more human, and not there are less stories that give space for that, allowing that difference to stay and even like be appreciated in its own way. Like there's a lot of assimilation stories in sci-fi, and a lot of assimilation stories that aren't handled in ways that I find interesting.
There are a lot of stories that decide it has to fall one way or another. There are a lot of stories that do this, that talk in a language of conquering. You know, when you watch something like Arrival, I think Arrival's great. But the resolution is that she is conquered by the language of the aliens. Whether we mean to or not, and she's enlightened by it. And this kind of narrative, either the alien becoming more human or the human becoming more alien, is the language of all of this. With Joshua and Lobsang especially, we see that neither happens.
Yeah.
They remain distinct and strange to each other. They remain an entity and respected, sort of, but strange to each other, which I really, really love.
But
interesting thing to me is that while I think there's like that core thematic similarity between Solaris and the Long Earth, Solaris has a very different tone or a very different attitude towards core theme. Or the overriding progression, I guess, of Solaris is sort of existential despair and melancholy, sort of needing to come to terms with something incomprehensible. The need to sort of just simply the grief of acceptance in a way.
Hmm.
Whereas the Long Earth seems almost, I guess, sort of like amused, but sort of delighted by difference in a way.
Yeah, yeah. And God, I know I've like mentioned this several times, but or I guess or maybe just once, but like I do really like that what Joshua and Lobsang work on is interpersonal communication, not in changing each other to make the other one more like themselves. Like, because there's a difference. There's a real difference between personally like being able to work together and like each other. Then there is changing each other in that way that I just I really sorry. My brain's I can't.
I mean, I think honestly, I think we've said this. I think we got it.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
we've communicated it pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm interested in watching the movie of Solaris because from
Which
what
one?
it sounds like, the Tarkovsky one, is from what it sounds like, it's very. It sounds like it's very different thematically.
Yeah, I'm sure fucking is Tarkovsky. We can't talk about that right now, but
Yeah, but also like the book would be, I think, almost impossible to translate to screen thematically, just because it's
we can't keep talking about the movie.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry.
Listen, it's been a long year.
I God, there's so many aspects of this book. Like, because there are the like, because obviously there's Joshua and Lobsang and the fact that they should kiss on the mouth. And then there's all of these like little short stories around this theme of the Long Earth that are very, I don't know, they're very distinct and they're very like they're very interesting. And a lot of them are very quiet. And I find them very enjoyable.
Joshua's muted reaction to everything kind of makes every situation quiet.
Yeah.
Lobsang wants to make things loud and wild.
Yeah, and it's so cool to see Lobsang through Joshua's quiet eyes. Because Joshua is just so like that quiet, like when I say like Joshua withholds judgment, I mean that quietness, that way he looks at things and lets them sit, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh.
Let's talk about let's finish talking about Joshua and Lobsang.
Yeah.
By talking about, and they'll appear elsewhere. Don't worry about that. But like, let's talk about the boxing. Let's talk about boxing.
That boxing scene was carnal.
It's symbolic. It's carnal. It's domineering. It's a representative of their relationship at that point. It's so good. Dear listener, in this book, relatively early on in their journey, like Joshua of his own accord suggests boxing, because he's kind of fucking tired of Lobsang blathering on. And he thinks, I don't know, he wants to. And then Lobsang kind of sets it up like a story from, like, one of Mark Twain's stories, and they are flying in a ship called the Mark Twain. And it is a fantabulous dance because Lobsang is an AI in like a robot body. And he kind of is toying with Joshua in his boxing. And they're also having this great conversation about the symbology of them boxing in this moment as they travel through 1,000 empty worlds. Or worlds that Joshua thinks are empty. Yeah. Or they're not actually past the major part, but like mostly empty worlds.
And I love that Joshua is frustrated, but he is enjoying it. That's another one of those moments that I'm like, if this was in another book, this would be like such a big conflict. And like it is kind of, but like they're having a good time. And I want to have a good time like that. Why I think someone should beat me up a little bit like that.
What you doing after this? I got time. Yeah, like this is a prime characteristic of Joshua and Lobsang's interactions. Joshua is very clearly and acutely aware that Lobsang will not act in Joshua's best interest, and will actually resist acting in Joshua's best interest quite frequently. And he is vain and arrogant and self-centered. But he doesn't like necessarily hate him for those things. He just kind of takes them on as traits for much of the book. There are times where he steps too far and Joshua will like get his ass. But it's generally only in situations in which Joshua was in very real sorts of danger that he will lash out at Lobsang. He resists doing so, and he resists the idea of this cruelty. Like he tries to. I think it's so great. And the symbology is so great. Choosing to be this larger than life creation that Lobsang is, and choosing to take on this adventure, and then choosing to call his ship the Mark Twain, and then choosing to try and reenact this larger than life scene that Mark Twain himself would tell all the time, and like it was barely real at best, is like phenomenal. Lobsang is obsessed with upstepping all of these ideas, with being something bigger. Lobsang doesn't have like, I think a lot of characters would be given a separate motivation for wanting to take everything and be everything. Lobsang doesn't really have one, except that he likes being powerful, and he likes the symbology, and he likes upstepping other people. He has no real motivations to run a company or to step out into the world or to discover everything beyond those things. They are not actually dangerous or important to him. This is just what he does. What he wants to do, very simply, is be better.
Yeah. And it is just a character trait. Like, it's not some big secret. It's not some, like, thing that has to be unlearned and overcome. It's just this weird guy.
I know that we've said this a lot in this series, but Jesus Christ, returning this book and it still being as banger as I remembered it being, and loving Lobsang as much as I remembered loving Lobsang. Oh, it feels so good. It's so rewarding. It's so nice. Lobsang is a great character, and I absolutely understand 100% why I connected with him at that point in my life, and I still do in many, many ways.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal character.
Oh yeah, that description of Lobsang you just gave, that sounds exactly how you presented yourself in high school.
It is often still how I present myself. Sorry to everybody who has to hang out with me.
You've like chilled out on it a lot.
It's true.
Like,
it's not an always thing. It used to be an always thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you had more intense, crazy vibes in high school.
which is really saying something.
Yeah.
It's weird because I'm super aggressive and conflict driven. Like, I escalate conflicts constantly.
Yes.
But also, like, I kind of feel like that description of Joshua who just, like, kind of rules with shit, it actually kind of is how I think about people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, until they actively, like, hurt me or hurt somebody I care about. Kind of just, like, roll with it, even if I know they don't have, like... Even if I know that they're not particularly moral or don't share my morals or whatever.
Yes, the difference being that Joshua rarely shouts his moral statements.
I don't do that as much anymore.
No,
but
because
I do,
of the troubles that it landed you in, yes.
Yeah.
It was a hard-learned experience.
Yeah,
but I do actually just kind of, like, roll with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly if I find them interesting.
Yeah. I feel that too. Like, one of the reasons I appreciated Joshua's point of view so much was because I was like, oh yeah, that's how I think. That's the right way to think, actually. Well, not for some things, but like the way, like how he interacts with people, or like Lopsang, the way he interacts with Lopsang, I feel was correct, and I feel like that's just the right way to think about things sometimes. Some of Joshua's thinking is just the right way to think about things, and I don't see it very often. I will let you guys know I am a little off the walls right now. I am like
You've
I'm
had
really
like
feeling it.
2 Adderall and a bunch of coffee.
I didn't.
Not
I was about to say you haven't had any Adderall today, right?
No, not today. Not today. I just did yesterday and had 2 hours of sleep, and I had like an interview, and like I'm just really feeling it, and I'm a little...
Oh, holy shit. You're so crazy, bud. That's just
little...
so concerning to me.
It's all okay. Don't take ADHD meds don't take a double dose of your ADHD meds after noon. Ever.
I only ever take 1 like pill a day. Granted, we're on like different ADHD meds. I am on Adderall, which I think works differently.
I actually am on Adderall, I found out. I thought I was on dextroamphetamine, but actually she changed me to Adderall, and I somehow did not understand that. Because the bottle still says dextroamphetamine on it. It just says dextroamphetamine plus the other half of Adderall, which does technically make it Adderall.
Okay, so Adderall just works differently for us.
Like how so? Or really quick, how so we can go back.
Well, Adderall doesn't relax me. Like, it seems like Adderall helps your anxiety.
Oh, no, that's a different one.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, this is the ones... Yeah. Anyway, I love this book so much.
I love this book. Let's stop talking about Joshua and let's talk about some short stories.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Pioneers, because I think that they're the first kind of set of short stories. So we start with The Young Girl's Diary.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a delight. Like, I think it's a great entrance to this. I think that for many Americans, one of the first educations you will have gotten on the Wild West is a diary exactly like this.
Yeah.
The image of the young girl's diary is like itself very much a American cultural icon. And we use it for a ton of stuff. And I really think that the first major one is Wild West. So I love that this book also starts with that. And I think her diary is like so lovely.
Yeah.
Not quite a diary, but my introduction was something sort of akin to that, which was the Little House on the Prairie series.
Oh yeah.
Which isn't a diary, but it is like in the same vein of sort of semi-fictionalized account of a life.
Yeah.
Somebody who was a young girl.
Yeah, and she ends up like her whole family is important to this story. Also, I should note.
Yeah.
But her story is a delight. Like, especially when you're first introduced to her, like she has qualms about what's going on. A lot, actually. She has qualms about her family leaving her brother behind. She has qualms about like seeing some of the destruction, the like ecological destruction that is happening from this colonization effort. She
The
sees
interesting thing is that our introduction to her story is her diary, but it is mediated through her father reading it.
Oh yeah, it's in fact we hear from the father first.
Yeah.
Before her, is he has his own
No,
little.
we read the diary entry and then we
No,
launch
he
into
has
it.
he has a
Oh.
little story first. You hear like remember
Yeah, it's like this is the one. Well, hold on. Don't we start with just her diary and then later on
I think we
he's
do.
like it's her
No,
birthday?
so no,
think-
there's the birthday. Okay, there's the birthday thing where he comes in and talks. But even before you start with her diary, you hear him like he has his own little section before you hear from her.
Oh god, yeah,
Yeah.
he does. You're absolutely fucking right. Where he is also talking about his worry about leaving the son behind and about doing this trip, and he is doing it for his wife, and he talks about that.
Yeah.
You are
I
absolutely
came
right.
out of that section fucking disgusted with him.
No, he's like not a great fucking guy. Honestly,
No, he's a piece of shit, actually.
I mean,
Like, I think
yeah, they both suck. Yeah, they're bad
but like
parents.
him specifically because he is so much less invested in the journey, where it like felt like, oh my god, if you had any moral character, you would put your foot down and you would say, you can go on this journey, I'm staying here with my kids.
That's very fascinating. I think that she's definitely worse.
I feel like she's a worse person, but because we didn't see her perspective, I have more disgust for him because I could see his like the inside of his brain.
It did.
If that makes any sense.
I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, you definitely get to see what he's thinking, and it makes it easier to be disgusted about why he's thinking that. But yes, definitely to me, the idea of being the person who's following a mythical Western dream and abandoning your kid for it is way, way worse than I don't want my wife to leave with one of my kids and not the other.
Yeah.
Because we should be like in my mind that's 100% what would have happened if he had stayed. His daughter Helen would still go with the wife, which is
I don't know. I think like if you duked it out in the fucking courts,
but they wouldn't need to. They would just step away. There are no courts on the Long North. This I should note is a thing that happened a lot in the Wild West, and I think that this is partially like an intentional parallel to it. But yeah, this is how I perceived it.
Yeah, I don't like them both. I will say that the line where he's like hugging his wife and like he's thinking about like how could she abandon her kid? Like he's not doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like he's not making the same choice. That did really piss me off.
Yes. I think it's very realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like a big thing is the abdication of agency. It's like, well,
agree.
what can I do?
I definitely agree.
Like, at least she is making a choice, even if it is a fucked up evil one.
Yeah, I think his choice is also not great. But let's stop talking about the green parents, because they're also not the point of the story, which I think is interesting and important. Because it's not only using a young girl's diary because it is this thing, but because, like, Helen herself, which is the young girl's name, and Rod is the boy's name, so I can stop saying young girl and young boy. Like, Helen is the main character because she believes less in this dream, but also because she doesn't have to consider all of these externals that any adult in this situation does have to consider. She isn't like all of the other adventurers that we see throughout the story in her many short stories. She doesn't have to worry about the economy or a job or this thing. She is being taken on an adventure. And yes, she misses Rod. And like, it is sad for her. And she is not fully certain about what's happening. But she also doesn't have a choice in it. So it doesn't matter. What she has to worry about is only what her day by day looks like. Which is important, and I think it's an invaluable insight into this world and how it works. Like, I love her, and I love her recordings of this, trek from the start, and she's quite young for such a journey, and the feeling of it. And it is romantic to see it through this young girl's eyes, and she's aware enough to see all the, like, destruction and abandonment that's happening because of it, without knowing all of the words to condemn these things, and without knowing all of the background information to condemn these things, right? Like, she's uncomfortable in her gut. She has a feeling. She doesn't know more than that yet. And I think
which is a lot about
so good.
That's a lot what like being a kid is like in general.
Yes, God, yes, it is. But I think it's an interesting way to view the Long Earth and the colonization of the Long Earth. Like, that is a fascinating question to me. But yeah, I love Helen. I think she's phenomenal. And I think she's a wonderful early framing for how people are living in the Long Earth and what kind of questions there are. And around her story, we are inundated with smaller, shorter stories. We see a lot of stories of people trying to strike it rich or do something really clever that actually a bunch of people already thought of.
Yeah.
Which is so good.
Realistic, honestly.
It's incredibly realistic.
I feel like living in the internet era
is this.
It's just watching that story over and over and over.
Yeah, my favorite of these, and it also is referenced over and over again, and also feels so Pratchettian, is the guy who's trying to find the gold.
Yeah.
God,
yep.
What is he? What is he? I don't remember his fucking name either. I'm so bad with names. But his like little bit about like jumping west and trying to hit gold and make the same gold mill that somebody else had, like, great story, so perfect, and immediately getting shut the fuck down.
Yeah.
And then also later in the story, he is referenced as like being wealthy and like being a guy who matters. Like, even though he had this dumb, stupid idea, just because he's first and early means that it like still kind of works for him. Maybe not to the same degree that he had imagined, but he's like doing okay later in the book, which is another note that I fucking love being in this book because it's also extremely fucking true. Like, you know, you mentioned the internet.
I feel like the world is being run right now by kind of dumb guys who were quick.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. You mentioned the internet. This is what we see all the fucking time, right? Is some guys who maybe had like a lightly good idea that wasn't like that great, but just because they were first and just because they were lucky and because they were they got their ideas popular earlier, they rule the whole fucking world. Mark Zuckerberg is like a crazy person, but he just happened to throw down.
Oh boy! Speaking of autism,
yeah, well, yeah, he happened. No, yeah, he's not one of us. I'm rejecting him.
No.
He's.
It's funny being an autistic person and looking at the world and going, "Wow, there's a lot of evil autism out there."
I know. It's just
my kind of autism was.
I mean, mine
autism
is
on autism crime.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate leaning into it, but it's true. There are a lot of like fucked up autistic dudes who are running a lot of shit, which is a whole nother fucking ordeal. Regardless, I like that that's a note, and I like that that's a note that it makes very specifically in saying like, nah, he's kind of a fucking idiot, and it works out for him because it's very truthful and it's very nice, and also it's very comedically written. It's very clown-ish while still retaining some of that like vibe of the Wild West. And this is something we haven't talked about. The writing style in this book and the way it like moves around, one feels shockingly cohesive. Even though it's written by two authors that I would describe as very different.
I will say there are bits where I was like, oh, this doesn't feel like anything I've ever read in a Pratchett book, and other bits where I was like, oh, this is super Pratchett.
Yes. There are some times where you can definitely feel the harder hand of one or the other, but relatively it stays very consistent, and it keeps this vibe. Like, I don't know how to describe it or what exactly. I can't pin down all of the traits that make it this way, but there is a feeling to it that feels like Western stories and books and stories. As somebody who heard a lot of these stories as like an oral tradition themselves, being able to feel the same way in the rhythm that these stories is written is like really exciting to me. And I think it's one of the cooler things this book does. A lot of how this book is written fits into our legends in style and theme, which I think is fantabulous.
Yeah. Oh, I really like this isn't about the short stories exactly, but I really like that you never meet the nuns. You only hear about them through Joshua's perspective and like
Wait, don't we
Joshua's
meet
like
the nuns?
recollection. No, you
We,
never
I
directly
mean,
meet them.
we do. We
Yeah,
see like a lot of flashbacks
we
of
do
them.
directly meet them,
Okay, but
but
even in the
not like
flashbacks,
dramatically.
yeah, you're never in a scene with them where they are directly taught. Like, it's never a this is the time that is happening scene. It is
Wait,
Joshua.
Lobsang or Joshua does go visit Agnes before he leaves for the journey.
Yeah.
They do
I
directly.
mean, we never see like one from the nun's perspective, but
Yeah, and
you
we
Okay,
don't
meet
spend
them
like
I'll have to.
directly.
yeah, we do interact with them directly in the now. Sister
Okay, I don't.
Joshua, before he goes on the journey, does go and visit Sister Agnes for a bit. It's not like
Yeah.
a lot. Like, let me be clear, it's not like a ton, and they are mostly referenced in reverse.
Yeah, okay. For some reason, I thought that was like another recollection where he was like in a different time and then recalling the journey, like meeting with her, and then yeah, okay. But that makes sense. Um, but like mostly they like live like you see them through Joshua's recollection and like stories and stuff, and they're just so cool and like vibrant, and you really want to get to know them. Um,
Yeah,
but
I
I just
love the
yeah,
nuns. I love the
yeah,
nuns. I love Sister Agnes. I love their whole every little mention of like these rule breaking cool ass nuns. It's
yeah,
my favorite,
and
and it's also like again part of the myth. Like it's part of the myth of so much of these like this convent that only does cool shit.
yeah.
Um,
I
and
just
and also Joshua being an orphan is very
yeah,
important to me, and this is a
I
big part of it.
yeah,
One interesting thing is that while I was reading The Long Earth, I was also reading a nonfiction book called Palo Alto, A History of California and Capitalism, I think it was called. Yeah, History of California, Capitalism, and the World, which is very much a story of sort of Western expansion and exploitation,
It is
told
actually very cool.
almost like, yeah, told primarily through the perspective of like human cost and human wreckage.
That sounds very cool.
It's a fantastic book.
Well, I might check that
I
out.
would strongly recommend it.
That would also genuinely be a very cool pair with this. Because they're about the same fucking thing. Just isn't it fucking crazy that we do all this, huh? That'd be fucked up or what? There are many other short stories. Most of them are shorter than Helen Green's thing. But we didn't really talk about Helen Green's second appearance from her birthday and after they set up. We could talk about that. We can also just skip over it because I think a lot of the feedback on the first part of Helen Green's story remains true.
God.
And we could talk about first person singular.
That is true.
Which...
Oh, God, I was frustrated because I really like first person singular and I find it really, really interesting. And also, it came right after the worst thoughts around the trolls, and it frustrated me the difference in how they were reacted to, I guess.
Oh my god, wait, I forgot to mention. Wait, hold on. Hey, one of my favorite things about this book is that the trolls, he calls it the long chant, like a long chant of the trolls. This is also the phrasing from Thud, one of my favorite Discworld books, about something the trolls
Shit, I'm
in
so excited
Thud
for
do.
when we do Thud.
Oh my god, Thud is such a good fucking book. Like, Thud is so good. But anyways, this is just another fun little note of like, hey, Terry Pratchett returns to the same ideas a lot. And tries to redo them better.
Oddly enough, like, aglets come up a lot in Terry Pratchett's work.
I think it's just like a very funny word. Listen, if you had to be comedy writer for 40 fucking books, you'd lean on some jokes. Aglet's a funny word.
It just comes up so much in his work. So often.
It's just a really funny word. He's right. He knows what's funny. But yeah, I think it's super fascinating. First person singular. You are absolutely right. And I think it's actually important that they meet first person singular after some very uncomfortable troll interactions. Like it brings a lot to it for me.
Mm-hmm.
First person singular is dealt with a lot more in the other books. I have not read them. I know that this is true. I know that first person singular becomes something of a main character in a regard. I will also note that first person singular himself, like themselves, itself got a lot of references to the Illuminatus trilogy, which nobody has read. I mean, it used to be quite famous, and if you talk to old nerds, they'll have read it. But like, people don't talk about it anymore.
I don't even know what that is, and I would like you to explain it to me.
It's so Pratchett, dude. Of course, like, I had never really thought about the connection before, but now that Pratchett has referenced it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course you fucking liked this book, or this series. Actually, it's this like postmodern science fiction poking fun at conspiracy theories, and you'll love this, Gio. It's written in 1975, so it's all about like sex, drugs, magic through a satirical lens about the Illuminati and other conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I'll probably like that.
And it's got like kind of like, it's like a little Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and Pratchett work is a little bit Illuminatus trilogy. And it's just a fucking delight. But in it, there is a sentient submarine called Fuck Up, and they encounter a single cell sea organism that has like is gigantic and like tries to. They have an encounter, and I double checked this too, but this little note annotation confirmed it for me, and I really appreciate that. He says, Lobsang says that first person singular is 23 miles long and 5 miles wide. And the Illuminatus trilogy makes a lot of jokes about 23. The number 23 appearing over and over and like being connected to fiction and like this idea of the 23 enigma and like this whole fucking ordeal. So that's like a big part of it. And like it's like this perfect weird little joke that this whole book is like building to make is first person singular. The organism that they encounter also calls himself I. Or
I think they she her pronouns for first person singular.
I couldn't remember. Listener, I finished this book a while ago, so if I mess up pronouns, names, or ages, you'll see why.
Yeah, sorry, that's my fault.
It very much is. First person singular. The sea monster organism in the Illuminatus trilogy merely calls itself I because its first words were like, I hear you, and that is itself the first person singular. And yeah, it's like this whole book was written to make this fucking joke for like a little second. It's so funny. It's such a funny fucking thing to do. Anyways, first person singular makes me feel crazy. Honestly, first person singular and Lob saying is one of those characters I do want 4 more books on, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. You say smart stuff. I don't have smart stuff. I have desire.
Yeah. I jeez. I want to read the rest of these fucking books. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for other things too, but I'm excited about that. I don't know.
I double checked and you were right. It is her, she, her, or first person singular.
Yes.
So sorry.
Oh, I had something else and I just lost it. Never mind. So this book, we got to the ending of this book, and I did start crying hysterically in my car, and I don't actually know why, because I don't think there's actually anything at the end of the book that warrants crying hysterically in my car. As I'm driving on the freeway with no way to like pull off to the side of the road.
You are allowed to just stop on the shoulder, Mulch.
There wasn't a shoulder.
That's true. There are sometimes freeways that don't really have a real shoulder.
It's true. There are sometimes not a real shoulder. I just wanted to make sure we were all clear.
Yeah.
I mean, I think first person singular is like this perfect little metaphor, right? We've had this entire book, which is about colonization and which is about interacting with things that are drastically unlike you and not needing to assimilate them, to not need to make them part of you.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of this book, and extremely fucking suddenly, they are like, yeah, here's the gel. Like, here's the blob. Sentient and living and first person singular. I and consuming.
Yeah.
And she is unthinkingly moving through the whole world to ostensibly be curious, want to touch something that is not by itself wrong, but which will cause her to absorb everything.
Yeah.
To take apart the whole of reality if she could only pass through this gap.
Yep.
And we are only lucky that she can't. That, as a wrap-up, as a very sudden wrap-up to this book, is genuinely thrilling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a lead-off into an entire series, it is an interesting wrap. Because, like, she is mentioned more, and she's more of a part of this as things go forward. But she's not she's not like always a main character, you know?
Yeah.
And like the idea of Lob saying, choosing to stay and just knowing as you continue that they're out there. This Tibetan repairman AI, and one that consumes all. It just like makes you so crazy, right?
Yeah.
And it's all accidental. Like she doesn't get it. She's like most people in this book, right? It's not like malicious. She just doesn't get what she's doing. She doesn't get why she's not respecting sentient life by making it part of her.
Yeah.
It's just what she does.
Yeah.
Oh. And it's not even like wrong. Like it's like like it isn't it's only as wrong as every other fucking thing has ever been. It's just what she's doing. I just like fuck, I love that. And I love it as an ending.
Yeah.
And I do want more. And that I want to kiss her.
Yeah.
And I know that in the other books there's more about her, and I want to read them very bad. Oh, there's just... Oh, okay, yeah. First person singular, I understand why it would make you weep like that. There's something so delightful, too, just about this idea of life never splitting apart. Just being like one great big thing. The whole oceans of the world bound together and coming up with thought. Like, that is really a delightful idea. And it is really moving. And you want... I think for me, I want her to be good and to be kind because her idea, her concept is so delightful. It's just charming. Like, I want her to be good. It's such a good idea, and it's such a wholesome kind of thought that the whole world would stay bound. I love first person singular. I want to love first person singular is much more accurate. I don't. What she's doing is wrong, but I want to. I want her to be all right.
Yeah.
And that is a phenomenal feeling.
God. It's such a good fucking book. I need... I
know. We have been talking about this book for like an hour and a half. And there are so many things that we have straight up not mentioned even one single time yet.
It's a very long book.
It's a pretty long book, but also it's just all over the place. You know, we haven't talked about Sally and Happy Landings in depth. This is the first time I've said Happy Landings at all.
Yeah.
And it's a huge part of this book, and it's a huge part of this message about the book. We haven't talked about Monica Janssen, the police officer in Madison. And I haven't mentioned the bombing yet, or Rod's whole fucking storyline to do with Monica. Like, there's so much in this book, and it is so layered within itself, and every single story is such a delightful metaphor and a delightful symbol that it feels almost impossible to talk about it all. Without repeating yourself 100 times, because they feed into each other.
Yeah.
I personally would be satisfied if we talked about Rod, Monica, and the Phobics, and then we're done.
Michi, you sneeze so funny.
What? Oh.
That was really good.
Oh, shoot. I said your name. I'll cut that out.
You have multiple times.
It doesn't matter.
I feel like I've missed it before in my editing. Like, I try to cut them out, but I feel in my soul that I've missed some.
Honestly,
it's
can
not
I just
a big deal.
Can I just fucking say, if somebody's actually listening to us close enough to catch all the ones we didn't get, and then to dox us and kill us, they deserve to kill us. They worked really hard for it.
I feel like
Yeah.
Michi isn't going to like reveal anything about my IRL identity.
It's true. It's like
Yeah,
not,
it is.
also
It is.
not your legal name.
It is also not your
Mhm.
legal name. It's just your name.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about the phobics. Let's talk about the phobics and, like, in general, Datum Earth. Because I think that this is a huge, interesting part that it talks about. Like, part of the consequences of the colonization and of the obsession with the West and of this American dream is that the whole datum world suffers. Inflation is dramatic, and I should be clear, a lot of the suffering is clearly from a capitalist system. And like the suffering is solely caused by the way that this world shares resources now.
Yeah.
Which the book is like not fucking subtle about at all.
Yeah.
Like we get a lot of feedback that we're some crazy fucking leftists, but this one's not just us. It's dumb. It's dumb. If we had infinite resources and everybody started worrying that money was worth this, I don't know. We should maybe all burn our fucking bodies, right?
Yeah. And it would happen. It would happen this way.
It would happen. Unfortunately, it would. Yeah, it would. Unfortunately, it would be fucked up.
Feel insane. Yes. Insane in the bad way, not in this insane in the way this book makes me feel.
Ugh. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Anyways, and one of the consequences is that there are people who cannot step, nicknamed phobics on Datum Earth. Helen's, the young girl's brother, is a phobic, and that's why he gets left behind. His name is Rod. Again, just so we're all fucking clear. And there is a whole storyline in this book which happens on or around Datum Earth. It kind of centers around Rod, and it kind of centers around Monica Jansen, a police officer from Madison, Wisconsin, who was like there the day that she was there on step day in the same town as Joshua, and she saw, we didn't even fucking talk about this scene, and it makes me feel so crazy. She saw Joshua save the other children on step day. Mostly children stepped first, and many of them got trapped in an empty, lonely world by themselves or screaming out for each other. Many of their boxes broke, and Joshua steps through and starts saving people. He starts fixing boxes and teleporting people back. Very, very cool.
Really, can I really brief side note for that story?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the big moments that made me like Joshua so much is when he describes the feeling of this happening, of being given that power and doing the right thing with it and not liking it.
Mm-hmm.
That made me feel that I loved that. I loved that. That's all.
I actually had a long conversation with Acacia. We can't believe her name. About people who think of goodness as a chore. There's this like thing you gotta do. To live in the world, to be in community, you have to do this chore of taking care of the people around you. And it's not pleasant, and it's not honorable, and there's no glory to be found there. You just gotta do it. Just the same way you gotta wash your fucking body and clean your fucking dishes. And how that's like vastly preferable to people who are trying to do these things because they are passionate or because they are looking for this reward of feeling good. You can feel good. You're allowed to. Like, it's absolutely something that will happen sometimes, and you'll be glad you do this work. But it's not why you do it. You do it because you gotta. You do it because when you're there and you got the work in front of you, you gotta do it. And that's the best approach to goodness. And I love how much Joshua is that exact fucking mindset. You just got to do the work in front of you. What are you going to do? Let the kids fucking die? You got to do it. I love that. Okay. So Monica's there. She also becomes she kind of hides the secret that Joshua is a natural stepper, because people don't really know about these yet. And it's kind of a big deal. And she also tries to help him. He doesn't accept it very much, but she's like aware of him and is looking out for him and all this kind of forever, which is cool. She is following up on an organization called Humanity First, a kind of reactionary radical organization pushing against those who venture into the long earth and the support they're getting from the American government. And we see flashes of similar sentiments in Britain as well. Because both of these writers are British and wrote the most American book I'll ever read.
Wait, both of them are? I thought only Terry Pratchett was British.
Yeah.
Let me double check. Born in Liverpool, Stephen Baxter. Born in Liverpool, went to Cambridge.
Oh my god, that's insane. It's insane that they wrote this book.
Yes. In my head, Stephen Baxter was also American. I may have misled you. I checked up on it later. This man's also English. So 2 British authors wrote the best American book about the Wild West. So some things aren't fair.
Yeah.
I haven't read enough books about the Wild West to say with any certainty that this one's the best.
Don't worry, I have. Trust me. It's this one.
Okay.
Anyways, we see some flashes of similar sentiment in Britain because these are 2 British gentlemen, and I think that they couldn't resist. Which I wouldn't have been able to either. Humanity First, like, we get to see their rallies. We get to see one of their rallies, and we see also how the police are, like, trying to monitor them, which is its own whole fucking discussion. And we also see them come up with this plan, which is kind of like part of the end of this book as well, in conjunction. So we get to see this first person singular on the other side of the whole universe, consuming everything and pushing in and getting stopped. And then at the kind of same time, a little bit later, Joshua and Sally go home, and we get to learn about all of Madison, Wisconsin, just like being blown up in a nuclear explosion. To bring attention to their issues, like, Humanity First takes this ultimate move, this great plan, and just absolutely blow fucking Madison, Wisconsin up. And then
and they did.
Yep. And the Thin Lobsang calls Joshua, and the book ends.
Yeah. And
it's such a fucking hard cliffhanger, and it's like so valuable, and it's such a reframing for the next book. Like, oh no, this next one is about datum. It's like, we had our adventure. The Wild West has come home to roost. Like, your consequences have caught up. Here's your symbol of colonization, and here's the people you left at home, and they are all burning.
Yeah. It wasn't, so me crying hysterically on the road wasn't actually first person singular. I love first person singular, but I had like a normal good emotional reaction to first person singular.
Don't believe you.
It was but the like bombing scene, it was the evacuation that I just started crying uncontrollably.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. It's actually really impacting. We didn't talk about long stepping at all, but the idea of like long stepping and discovering this, and it's like, I don't know, stepping between happy landings and the end of Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah, anyways, they blow up fucking Madison, Wisconsin. It's a big deal, and it's a reasonable cry about it. It also is kind of a resulting conversation that the book has all the time about like how can we manage security if anybody can just sidestep everything? If anybody could, if literally any person except for like 1% of the population can step left and step right and be anywhere they want to be, what do we do about that? Sorry, I'm on the Terry Pratchett forums. A lot of people fucking hate this book.
That makes sense, I guess, because it's very different tonally and stylistically from a lot of Terry Pratchett's other work. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, I am. I'm just still reading it. A lot of people are like talking about The Long Earth as if it's this super serious book. And to like some extent it's more serious in many ways than like Discworld. It's still like an extremely silly book. Like
I think the silliness is very deadpan, and that throws people off.
I mean, it's kind of what makes it like good for me. Like even just the base concept of this diagram powered by a potato being released on the internet is like incredibly funny. And when you see him like leaving the note, it's kind of really funny too. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's very silly stuff being described very deadpan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it yeah, I agree with you.
It's crack treated seriously. AO3 tag.
Mulch. Do you have brain poisoning?
It's difficult sometimes. It's difficult being around Jill. No,
it's worse.
Oh yeah. No, I've lived through the worst. No, I was there. No, I remember. Okay, I'm done roasting you. No, I think
start talking about a megaverse again.
I mean, that's just funny. I'm a furry. What do I care? You guys are just weak fucking furries. A megaverse is just weak baby furry shit. You just aren't afraid to go all the way.
It's just furries, but with sexism, with fake sexism.
No, furries write stories with the sexism. Like furries have these stories. Like furries have Omegaverse stories and have for a very long time. They're like not new at all.
Yeah, no, I know.
Omegaverse is just being a pussy furry. Like you're just baby. You're just not on my fucking level. It doesn't astound me at all.
It's true. Actually, like Megaverse is funny because it skipped a step. Like it went straight from full-blown bestiality porn to like, what if bestiality, but everybody involved was human?
That is the funniest fucking description of a Megaverse possible at all. No, that's our opening. This is our opener now. This is killer.
It literally was like fucking supernatural RPF, and people started writing shit about the one guy and his dog, like his real life dog.
No, I know. Unfortunately, I know. Despite all of my fucking intentions, I know.
Yeah, it's one of those horrible facts that you kind of wish you could erase from your memory, but once it's there, it's fucking lodged. It's not coming back out again.
Imagine if someone started writing porn of you and your dog. Imagine knowing that existed.
Another great reason to not own a dog.
It's what what's his face deserves. I don't like him. He's got bad vibes.
Jensen Ackles.
Yeah, Ackles, that guy.
It is what he deserves. That's what you get for being on Dark Angel. This show fucking sucked. I'm sure there's like some huge Dark Angel fan out there who's like really fucking pissed about that. But
Dark Angel,
it actually was pretty popular, and did like star a bunch of huge names.
I had it recommended to me as a child.
Jessica
when I was
Alba.
getting into TV.
It's like Jessica Alba's like big start, which is insane to me. It doesn't feel like that is right, but it is. It feels like Jessica Alba should have come out of the 90s. I'm gonna fucking say it right here, right now. This is my stance. It's weird that Dark Angel was her breakout. Okay.
God, this is the kind of thing that would we are the type of podcast that would somehow end up being listened to by like Dark Angel fan in 2023.
The fact that any human being listens to this is insane. In fact, if you are a person listening to this and you have reached this point, listen to me now. I need you to go into the comments and describe to me why the fuck you listen to us. Justify yourself. This is not a request.
This is not a professional podcast. We do not hold ourselves to a high standard of professionalism.
I do do the math sometimes for fun about like how many people have listened all the way to the end on individual videos. Because it tells you the percentage of views that make it all the way to the end of the video. And it's normally like 3%, right? But the thing is, if you have 1,000 views on a video where 3% of people get to the end, that's still too many people that have listened all the way through a like 2-hour video of us like talking nonsense about a book.
I like you dodging the actual math. Yes, it is. It's too many. I mean, it's crazy. I listen to a lot of bullshit, y'all. This is some bullshit. It's a lot of people. Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, and I understand that it's a question of like the sheer scale of humanity is like so astounding that any individual action will have likely been repeated by another group of people. And so even one person making a decision tends to lead to at least 30 people doing it. Like if a decision is like feasibly possible, at least 30 other people will do it because there are now so many people. And because we happen to live within the dominant culture, which so heavily infests other countries and cultures that like it's just unavoidable. But it's still kind of scary. And yet again, please justify yourself in the comments if you've reached this point, because I suspect this point is like maybe an hour and 15 minutes into the edit. And I need you to justify yourself. I do. Yeah. It's not a request.
I like to listen to long-winded bullshit. One of my favorite things to do is like listen to people list off their like top 100 or top 50 favorite movies.
No, but that's so much more reasonable. That's a list. People love a list. You love a list. Lots of people
It's true. I am a very list-oriented person.
Yes, it's a problem. You have a list problem.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like a fundamentally poor way of doing things, I think. It's like
I know that lists are meaningless
well,
and that they're stupid, but they're also fun.
Are they?
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of lists,
a fun way to think.
Are we going to put this on our list? This book, The Long Earth?
No, I don't think so, because it's not Discworld.
Legit.
Yeah,
that's good. Take it away.
So
well, Ankh-Morpork Historians Guild, I think that this is good for us. What are we reading next?
Gideon the Ninth.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It's okay. You can procrastinate so long on this one. You deserve it, honestly. I want you to like hurt us if
what I deserve.
I mean, like, if I fucking hate this book, I don't fucking feel that we should record an episode. I hate being the hater.
Okay, let me put it this way. We will not record the episode on Gideon the Ninth if you hate it.
Okay.
We'll just go on to the next Discworld book.
If I'm lukewarm, I'll talk about it. But I hate being the hater. I don't like being the hater.
Yeah.
I'm willing to walk with you there.
Yeah, that's fine.
How's your walk with
trying to-
Christ?
I'm trying to do the math. What's 3% of 1,500?
What?
Is that how many people got to the end? Is that what you're saying? It's
3%.
It's 45 people. 30 people.
45
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Hey guys, you have got to go do some Khan Academy or something. Like, you should be able to do 3% of 1,500. I'm saying it right now.
I can't even handle that.
Okay, it's 45 people. 3% of 1,500 is 45 people. On whatever video you're looking at,
Forget the math.
45 motherfuckers got all the way to the end of our video.
That is insane. I was expecting it to be like 1 or 2 people at most.
This is what I'm saying.
45 is so many people.
Earlier,
what the fuck?
earlier my example is any human decision will mean that at least 30 other people will fucking do it at this point. That's what I'm fucking saying. That was not random.
Crazy.
Mulch said 3% of 1,000, and that was 30. That was not like a random number I pulled out of my ass.
Yeah. So
35 fucking people.
Yeah, nearly 50
fuck?
fucking people.
Yeah, the Guards episode has 1,500 views, and 3% of people got to the end of the video.
Okay, to be fair, that might have been one of our better ones, but still, what the fuck?
I mean, I can only assume people listen all the way to the end because they like falling asleep to the sound of my beautiful voice, bloviating about bullshit.
I like to think it's for my keen insight and analysis.
Yeah, mine's way more realistic.
Anyway, speaking of bloviating, we should wrap this up.
Yep, next time.
Weird Sisters is also 3%, and it's 1,000 views, so that's like 30 people,
that's
right?
30 people, yeah.
Yeah.
Weird Sisters, really? See, I feel like I was a hater in that episode. I hate that that's one of our...
You were, but I was so keen and so insightful.
No, Weird Sisters was the one you liked. That's the one you liked.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
Like it enough, though.
But the thing is, it's the one you liked, but also the audio went wrong, and it recorded from your computer, and you sound like you're stuck down a tin well.
How is that one of our most... People made it all the way through that?
Yeah.
Are we sure that these are, like, human people?
I don't know.
The one I hope people don't watch Lord and Ladies one, because that one, I say some real stupid shit.
I don't even remember. What did you say?
Which is Abroad is also 1,000 people, 1,000 views. Where's Lord and Ladies? Lords and Ladies.
Don't check it. I'm scared.
I want to know.
Wait, what's the dumb shit? No, hold on. What was the dumb shit you said?
I think I said something about Harry Pratchett not being opposed to the monarchy.
It's
600
views.
God.
Lords and Ladies is
my
600
most
views.
insane take.
Well, take it back a minute.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
How many views?
600.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's a relief.
621.
And how many? What's the completion rate?
I can't check from this one because I'm on the computer and I don't know how to do that. I just know how to do it from my phone. But normally they're about 3% by the end.
That's crazy. Again, our closing message for this evening, we'll be doing Gideon the Ninth next time. Fucking justify yourself. If you are here at the end of this fucking podcast and you hear my voice now, consciously, go in the comments right now and justify to me why you listened all the way to the end.
Yeah.
I expect some fucking responses because I know that there's going to be probably at least 10 of you.
Insane.
Which is deranged. You shouldn't have listened to this. You shouldn't have done it. How did you find this?
I actually know how they found us. Because I am constantly looking for insert title here audiobook on YouTube. I click on the thing that is the likeliest looking length, and half the time it's a fucking podcast.
Yeah. That is actually how people find us. That's in our thing in YouTube Studio. It tells us this, and most of people who find us through searching book name audiobook.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. I'm done now.
Oh,
Okay.
speaking of closing messages, I still think that dog in Men at Arms was Hitler. I feel like that dog was definitely a Hitler analog, no matter what you guys say.
It just did not occur to me.
I'm not approaching this.
Okay.
I'm not approaching
Goodbye.
the dog Hitler thing again.
Goodbye. Good night.
Bye.
Read The Long Earth. It fucks extremely.
Yeah, please read The Long Earth.
Keep in mind the fact that it is deadpan comedy. Like, it's not super serious. Just, like, pay attention to the substance as well as the form.
I mean, I gotta say, I understand what you're saying about deadpan. This book is, like, really fucking funny. Like, I laughed out loud, like, multiple times.
Me too.
I'm not saying it's not funny. I
don't even think it's
describing the type of humor.
I don't think it even is pure deadpan comedy. What about the fucking soldier who runs in with the trolls and thinks they're Russians? That's fucking hilarious.
That was one of my favorite bits, honestly.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about it.
It was so funny.
It's so good. You should read this book.
I also found it just deeply charming, along with being funny.
Yeah.
Hey, in your justification, tell us if you've actually read the book. Because I suspect that the 30 or 45 people on even our most watched videos who finished the book, or who have finished the episode, haven't read the book. It makes more sense to me, somehow, if you also haven't read the book. Because you're clearly deranged.
Zero sense to me.
Well, you're clearly deranged.
I
If you
don't know,
get to
man.
the end of the fucking podcast, you're clearly a crazy person. I mean, you belong with us. Like, you belong with us.
I have listened to podcast episodes discussing movies that are longer than the movie that they're discussing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
So, yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
you understand that nothing you're going to say about what you listen to is going to disprove the statement that if you got to the end of this, you're a crazy person. You understand that, right? Like, I don't want to be hateful or anything.
Admittedly,
but you know
part of it is just that I live an unconventional life where, like, I have a lot of opportunities to just have a thing running while I do another task.
Yes.
You're so crazy. That was such a crazy way to put that. That was so good. We have to go. We have to leave.
Okay, goodbye, listeners who are inexplicably still listening.
My dear, dear listener, please post your justification. And if you want, we can be friends. I'll tell you that right now. You're a crazy person. And that means you belong with us. You're ours now. Good night.
It's so scary.
Holy God. Is this the sting operation? Am I being fucking baited?